Hello everyone, my name is Hanna, I'm a Jesuit, and I'd like to talk about Pope Francis. Francis is the former Cardinal Archbishop of Buenos Aires and now the leader of the Catholic Church. He's the world's first Latin American Pope and the world's first Jesuit Pope. I'm a Jesuit too, so perhaps I can give us some insight into his message. What is Pope Francis's message? This is Pope Francis's message. This was a picture taken at World Youth Day in South America. It's a selfie. It shows that this is a friendly pope, that this is somebody who's not afraid of technology, but much more importantly, it shows that this is a pope who puts others at the center and himself on the edge. This is what we call care of person. This is a pope with a radical view of the Church's relationship to real people, and he shows that in 3 ways. The first way is by the way he lives his life, his personal style. Secondly, his idea of the mission of the Church. And thirdly, his commitment to discernment. Let's take a look at what these 3 things are in more depth. The Pope has garnered a lot of attention for his personal style, but he makes his decisions in order to convey the message of care of person. And this started even before the Pope was elected. Benedict XVI was one of the first popes in a long time to resign from the position. This was an act of humility, giving up power for the good of the whole Church. And humility is the main theme of Pope Francis's personal style. Pope Francis's commitment to poverty and humility was apparent from the first moment he stepped out of the gate. Instead of wearing the traditional ermine fur and gold tracery that popes used to wear, he wore a simple white cassock. And instead of blessing the crowd, he first asked the crowd to bless him, imploring their prayers to help him be a good pope, before he blessed them in return. At Easter time, on Holy Thursday, Pope Francis went to a juvenile detention facility and washed the feet of 12 inmates, the way Christ washed the feet of the 12 disciples. It was a gesture of supreme humility. Imagine you're a poor Muslim girl in a foreign country, and you're in jail. Imagine that an important dignitary is coming to the prison, and everyone respects and admires him. How would you feel if that person knelt down before you and washed your feet? Pope Francis doesn't merely preach his message of care of person, he lives it out in everything he does. Let's move on to how Pope Francis understands the mission of the Church. In an interview Pope Francis gave to America magazine, Pope Francis spoke in depth about how he thinks we can function as a church in the modern era. The first thing he said is that the Church is not made of doctrines. The Church is made of people. People are the ones who go out and do the work of the Church. As for the work of the Church, Pope Francis had a wonderful image. The image he used was a field hospital. Pope Francis envisioned the Church going out into the world and finding those who are most wounded, most rejected and marginalized, and healing their wounds. Our first job as a church should not be to judge individual actions, but to reassure individual people that they are loved unconditionally by God. The person is what matters. This teaching is born out of Pope Francis's real-life experience. When he was in South America, he had to live in slums and be in personal contact with people who were the most rejected by society. He had to look into their eyes, and it changed him. This is the context in which we should read the Pope's remarks about de-emphasizing political issues like gay marriage, and re-emphasizing the human person and the work of healing that should be the Church's first priority. As Christ said, "I came not to condemn the world, but to save it." How is Pope Francis going to effect this change of emphasis in the Church? He'll do it through discernment. Discernment is a key aspect of Jesuit spirituality. Discernment is about finding the desires of the heart and conforming our actions to those desires. We won't be seeing the policies or doctrines of the Church being changed. Pope Francis is not effecting a change of policy. He's effecting a change of heart. Pope Francis's teaching and preaching is oriented towards helping us desire deep in our hearts to care for the person, to care for the people we encounter in our lives. Not just to have open doors as a church, but to go out from those open doors and meet real people and tell them that God loves them unconditionally. If we as a church truly desire to care for the person, to put others at the center and ourselves at the side, then our church will change without Pope Francis having to do a thing. This change of heart will change our actions, and it will change the way we interact with everyone in the world. The gospel message doesn't change. It is true for all time. But as Pope Francis says in his interview, each new age of human history must appropriate and articulate that message in new ways. Pope Francis, by the way he lives his life, is appropriating the gospel message for our age. And the message is care of the person.